What's up, guys? David Gordon here. I'm here with my good friend Joe Enders, and today we want to talk to you guys about grifting and why it's a serious problem in the Catholic world, in the right-wing political world, and really what it's doing to the movement, kind of the right-wing Catholic movement. I think it's very divisive, and it's something that needs to be highlighted and kind of gotten rid of, gotten out of public dialogue. What say you, Joe?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that we're seeing right now, just as far as like, feuds among Catholics and things like that. I mean, you can go on Twitter and go on Catholic Twitter and you can see any of this. And there's no point, there's not even any point in naming names, so I'm not even going to bother going into that. But just as a concept, the grifting is, first off, I mean, grifting's just this idea that, you're in this for the money. You're not in this for the principles. You're not into it forever. And that's kind of what causes the divisions is like, in order for this to be rooted out, someone's got to be called a grifter. Somebody needs to be called that. That label needs to be put on them. And as soon as that person has that label put on them, well, guess what? They're upset. And then there's this feud that goes on. So I think that's kind of what you're trying to say with like the divisiveness.
Dude, everyone with a camera nowadays, it's like a business. Everyone who has a camera thinks they're a small business now. Every white guy has a podcast, as the saying goes. And they all put up their content, and there's this big rat race to make the clickbaitiest titles to cover the most controversial issues. And what it lacks is intellectual honesty. Because there is a race for just clicks, people are essentially pandering to their audience and just saying things that they know that is going to rile. It's going to be like red meat to the dogs of their audience. Like, oh yeah, Pope Francis, is he Pope? Is he really Pope? Should we be set of a contest? Like, well, I know I'm going to get 30,000 clicks if I put an episode out like that. But you know why I don't? Because I have freaking integrity. There is a lack of integrity. Everyone's trying to chase down YouTube dollars, and very few people out there will actually challenge their base. We're in a time of mass confusion in the church, in politics, and people, instead of being like, look, we got to be disciplined. We've got to have intellectual discipline and really hew to our principles, even though, at times we're not gonna know what's gonna happen in the future. We're not gonna know maybe what Pope Francis is gonna say next. So it's easy to get far afield from your principles of being like a stalwart and steadfast Catholic. It's easy to go far afield and be like, you know what? I don't think we have a pope. You know what? I think maybe the Pope stopped being Pope when he said heresy. And a lot of people out there are confused about the same thing. So they're like, yeah, I want to hear an episode on like how Pope Francis might not really be the Pope. But the thing is, he is the Pope, and it's all just intellectual feel-goodism. It's just trying to tickle your curiosity, and not all curiosity is good. So you have all these people that run to the internet for sensational topics being covered by other people who don't know anything about what they're talking about. That's a problem, Joe.
But what I hate about it is that it's like they're kind of like leading the horse to water, but not telling them to drink. That's what bothers me the most about that. And there's a perfect example. I remember there being a title of a YouTube video. I mean, you can go find who it was yourself. I honestly don't even remember who it is, so don't say I'm calling this person out. I don't want to hear it, But,
yeah.
But,
in the comment box, some dingbat right now is like, oh, he's going after Joe Schmo. He hates him. He's trying to
exactly. Look, I don't even know who this person is. This is the title of the video that I read on there, and it was like, it was something along those lines. I'm even paraphrasing it, so I might not even get it right, but it was something along the lines of, don't sell your soul over the abortion issue. And what is that? What is the initial message that you get when you read something like that? Is like, oh, don't think of the abortion issue as the most important thing. Don't think of this as the preeminent moral issue of our time, as the USCCB said. Don't think of it as those things. That's the initial reaction that you get from these idiots. And that's what really bothers me about it, because then you go and watch the video and they're like, oh, well, actually, I'm not saying the abortion issue isn't important. What I'm actually trying to say is that you shouldn't give up your soul for the abortion issue. Your soul is the top thing, according to Aquinas. I don't want to hear that nuanced crap. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear that nuanced nonsense. You're not being nuanced. What you're doing is you're trying to make Catholics think a certain way by reading your little clickbait crap and then expecting normal, unsuspecting people to watch the video and get your point. That's not what they're doing. It's a huge grift for clicks, and that's what really bothers me about it.
Yeah, here, if your title doesn't match your content, you're a grifter. Like that's one test of grifting. Is like my title is Pope Francis still the Pope? And my answer is basically can just be summed up in one word, like yes. But you're still creating a problem. It doesn't matter. You're not absolving yourself of the mischief you're doing, of the malfeasance you're doing. If your title is like Pope Francis is Satan, and then you spend the next 45 minutes explaining he's not really Satan. Like, nice try. And when you die and are judged, you're gonna have to explain that to God, because not everyone clicks into your stupid video. For one, a lot of people are perusing YouTube and they're looking at like more interesting stuff than two dweebs talking about like their Aquinas, and they're going to see that, and it's going to implant a message into their head anyway. You're going to be held responsible for your dumb little clickbait titles, number one. Do people not see through that little jig, by the way?
I honestly think, like I said, with a lot of these titles, it's like just a massage of these people's ego. These people have been thinking these things for a long time because they've either been scandalized, or they've been abused, or they've been mistreated at some point, or been told something false that they thought was true. So then they'll see this title like this, like, oh, that guy stands with me. And it's just like, no, they don't stand with you. They're marching you to the gates of hell. What are you doing?
But here's the other thing. Stands with you? Dude, if you have to look stuff up on Google about your faith, like, you shouldn't have, Catholic pundits, quote, standing with you. You need to be led by them. If you're at the point in your catechesis where you think theological research is like doing a Google search and checking the catechism, like, bro, you're out of your element. You need to find, like, trustworthy people. And this is where the magisterium comes in, and this is why this is the problem with the magisterium, like, kicking this can down the road, or like punting on this issue, when those people who have charism of preaching and the Holy Spirit guides to truth, when they completely default on their duty to be the educators of Catholics, then you have all of these people who step up to the plate that are laymen. And these laymen, for one, their motives are mixed, because they want to earn that Skrilla. They want to earn their Benjamins. So, and they need clicks to do that. So they're going to say stuff and take liberties with the truth in order to get their stupid clicks. But second of all, they're not in a great position to lead. Maybe they don't know what they're talking about. How many Catholic podcasters right now, talking heads in the Catholic world, don't have Catholic theology degrees? I can think of a lot. And they're out there criticizing, I think the church erred in its liturgical theology when it brought in the Novus Ordo. It's like, but you don't even have a theology degree. And by the way, liturgical theology is really tricky. Like, that's what I tried to specialize in my master's degree program in theology, and I still don't feel qualified to just go and take on the church's, like, best liturgists and say what they're doing in Vatican II can just be thrown out. But you have these guys with philosophy degrees. Dude, you're a philosopher. Just because I'm a chemist doesn't mean I know biology. Yeah. It's insane. And people are just the type of people that have to, like, Google the catechism. They just are like, well, this philosophy guy said that, Pope Francis is the Antichrist, so therefore, that's my opinion, too. It's a problem, Joe. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, like, I agree mostly with what you're saying. There's one little nuance I want to add in there. You can be smarter than a lot of, theologians with degrees and stuff, given that you went through the same amount of rigorous work and study that they did in your own free time, reading these books and analyzing these books and doing all those things. Because I don't think either you or I are saying that, like, oh, if you have a degree, you're qualified. Because, I mean, even if you do have a degree, I mean, we can look at the colleges today. It's just... It doesn't necessarily matter that you have the degree. You could be just spreading Marxism with that degree, for example. But one of the things that really I have a problem with these theologians who think they're, and I'm not a theologian, by the way. Like, I have a bachelor's degree in politics, economics, and philosophy. That I'm never going to be kind of speaking. But there are little things that. And
you're still retarded, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
Even with all that,
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm kind of retarded. But besides that point, what I'm really trying to get at is these theologians who think that they get all their information from Google, what they'll do is they'll latch onto one thing that one saint said in a quote and negate it. I can give a perfect example of this. I've heard this 100 times on Pope Francis being a heretic. They'll say that, well, Saint Robert Bellarmine says, and then it's like, yeah, Saint Robert Bellarmine had 5 arguments for the Pope. And one of those arguments he said was that the Pope is ipso facto removed from his papacy if he's a heretic. Okay, fine. That is one argument that he made out of 5. But you got to read the whole thing. The first argument that he makes is that the Pope cannot be a heretic. And he even wrote that that was the most probable argument in his mind. And then he said the second most probable would be that a superior would have to remove the Pope. And if we know anything about canon law, there is no superior to the Pope.
And no one judges the Pope.
Yeah, no one judges the Pope, right? So that's my point. Is like, yes, you can put that one Bellarmine quote that says he ipso facto removes himself because you found it in a Google search. But if you don't have the complete understanding of the argument, you're stuck there looking like a fool. You're stuck looking like a fool, and then you're leading people out of the church.
Here's the thing, though. This is what drives me nuts about, like, the fallen earth. These people, yeah, they're fools. The people in the know, it's like, okay, I did a little bit of electrician work around my house today, right? And I don't know anything about electricity. I'm just a layman, like, in the electricity world. And I blundered around a little bit, and I actually fixed some, like, wiring, and did some good man projects. But, like, I don't think I'm an electrician, and I probably, I could be making some mistakes. Like, I don't know, ground something properly. I don't even know the right wording necessarily. And
I'm just getting a mental picture right now of you, like, putting, like, a fork into an outlet right now, and then just, like, having, like, electricity go through you like a Tom and Jerry episode.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even know that that's wrong. I was like, wait, when you touch your light switches, it doesn't shock you? I thought that was what you're supposed to. I thought that's supposed to happen. No, but so, like, my house would eventually burn down if I did something like this wrong, and maybe once in a, I can get some projects right, but there's not necessarily an electrician around to come and be like, you messed this up, you're an idiot. And the problem with, like, theology and philosophy is like, there is, aside from the church coming and censuring you and, like, being like, you, sir, are out of line, you better get in line, or else there's going to be these canonical penalties on you. Apart from that, my errors just they fly under the radar. So you have all these talking heads out there making these embarrassing gaffes, but people don't even know. They take them seriously. They think they're, like, doing really precise and accurate theologizing, and they're making embarrassing gaffes, but there are no police around to come be like, hey, will you shut up and get off the air? You don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't happen, and it's frustrating. So you have all these dingbats in the Catholic world that can accrue really big followings of, like, very strident, trad wives who are angry, and they'll defend them to the death. And it's like, these people are all defending people who don't know what they're talking about because they've entertained them enough. That's another problem with the fallen world. If you entertain plebes enough, they come to your defense. They will rush to your defense, and if you're like, maybe he shouldn't have run over that doggy with his car, all the plebes are like, damn it, he should have run over that dog, and I'm glad he did. That dog deserved it, had it coming. It's like, I don't know. Like, I hate this fallen world.
No, that's how they do it, though. Like, if you look at grifters, what they'll do is they'll find some geeky and stupid clique in the church, and they'll just pretend to be just like them. So all those people run to them and are just like, he's just like me. And once again, pairing the aesthetic with the with the ideas themselves that they're proposing, they're like, oh, this guy's me, I'm gonna watch him. So they have these huge followings of these, like, amorphous masses of weirdos in the Catholic Church, and like I divide them into probably 2 cliques, right? We're talking about your hippie Church of Nice Catholics that you'll have certain YouTubers just flock to follow. I mean, I'll give one example, Father James Martin, you know what I mean? And then you have these, like, weird constipated trad types that walk up in tweed suits and snow dandruff all over their prayer cards when they're asking you about a devotional you've never heard of. So and those what they'll do is they'll have these two sects of Catholic YouTube, and a lot of times these people will have no idea what they're talking about, or will have an idea of what they're talking about, and are purposely trying to mislead you. And they do it through, like I said, this mixture of aesthetics and telling you the ideas you want to hear, but not necessarily the correct ideas that you need to.
You know who I actually admire, and I will name drop, is Michael Lofton. Michael Lofton is not in it for the money. He's not in it for the fame. And you know how you know? Because he challenges his own base, and he's willing to take unpopular stands, even if it hurts him, like, financially, even if it hurts his popularity. Dude, you're not part of the new evangelization. You are not part of preaching the gospel. You don't get to hold yourself out as like a living, breathing saint. If your primary drive for doing something is financial, you don't get to do it. You have to be driven by the truth. You have to be driven by a zeal for the truth. And the fact is that there are too many cynical SOBs out there in the world that are willing and able to say whatever they want that's going to go over people's heads, that sounds interesting, that sounds appealing, that sounds sensational, that might cover topics that those people kind of want to know about. It's interesting to hear about the end times. It's interesting to hear about the Antichrist and the false prophet, and to sit around and surmise, well, it would be weird if, like, the Pope were a false prophet and this were, like, the end days. It may be actually the end times. I don't know. It's seeming really end timesy with Pachamama and, rumors of wars and the confusion in the church and the mass falling away, mass apostasy, and people following, like, LGBT stuff and teaching about, like, homosexual furries in clown suits to 4-year-olds. It seems end timesy.
It's such a stupid discussion, though. Like who cares? Okay, it's like, haha, I know the end times are coming. I will stop them. And it's just like, no, but it doesn't matter. It's just happening, and you're gonna have to deal with it. I really don't buy the whole, like, we need to do all these stupid little discussions and waste our time and our breath trying to figure out when the world is going to end. Just to be honest with you, it's just a personal opinion I've had for a long time. And maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. It doesn't matter to me one way or another, because whether the world is ending or the world isn't ending, I'm dying at the end either way.
Well, there's that. But here's the other thing. Some schmuck's 2-week read over the book of Revelation does not make him like some kind of a guru on what's going to happen at the apocalypse. And that's what it is. Like, if some internet philosopher, like, reads his book of Revelation in the vernacular, mind you, because he doesn't know Greek. If he goes to his revised standard edition of the Bible and comes up with a kooky idea. Kinky's not the right word, I'm quite sure.
No, that was just
that's a Freudian
that's one for the gaff reel right there.
A kooky idea of, like, what the pale horse is, and what the red dragon from the book of Revelation is, based on his read through of the English version. He's not using a lexicon. He doesn't know ancient Greek. He's not using a technical commentary, but he's doing his read through of Revelation and being like, dog, here's what I got it. The red dragon is China, because China's like a dragon, and it's red because the communists that run it, the Maoists that run it. Now it's all coming clear. I'm gonna just paint you a picture here, dude. You don't listen to that. It's garbage. It's stupid, and it's appealing to your fallen curiosity. What we need are real leaders who are going to tell people, like, look, focus up. You've got to get to heaven. You've got to do these things. We can talk about some of these interesting discussions, and, I have maybe some of the credentials to do this for you, because I did get, like, a theology degree, and I do we can use a little bit of that, but it has to be disciplined. We have to keep these discussions within proper parameters, and that's not happening right now.
I'll be honest with you. I don't even think it's discipline. I think it's humility. That's really that. I do. I actually think that's the bigger issue than accuracy or anything. It's simple humility. You cannot just walk in front of a webcam, walk in front of a camera, unless you've either had conversations with the experts before going into something, or are an expert yourself. You are not a credible source of information. Hey, Catholic YouTube. You're not qualified.
He breaks the qualified. He's breaking the fourth wall right now.
I'm just saying, it's just how do you not, you have to understand not only the arguments that are being presented to you, but the counter arguments that are also being presented, and whether those counter arguments are acceptable and compatible with church teaching. There's a lot of work that goes into saying something before you can just say it's the truth. And that's the problem right now. You have Catholic YouTubers, just going like, oh, well, this is the interesting thing to talk about. I don't necessarily know anything about it, but I'm going to do some quick little Google researches. I'm going to go to the Vatican website and read a few papal documents, and then I'm going to come out with something and say, this is what the case is. I'm making the case, and whether, it leads people to hell if I'm wrong or not, I'm just going to wing it.
And, here's my best source is bro, trust me. Like, guy, trust me. Guys, dude, I'm ready to theologize for you on difficult and esoteric topics. You know why? Because I'm a guy with a philosophy degree. And, bro, trust me. Like, dude, your Google search doesn't do it for me. And everybody has to know that. But you know how many people right now are getting, like, their panties in a wad because we're saying this? Like, oh, I know who you're talking about. Maybe you do. And it's everything
I can tell you one thing, it's not one person. We're not talking about one person.
Yeah.
There's no specific person I have in mind right now. I doubt there is for you either. It is literally like almost the entirety of Catholic YouTube that is this way. It's almost the entirety. And I'm not just talking about trads, and I'm not just talking about modernists. It's literally both of them. They just don't do the research before they put out information.
Well, and they want the clicks, but they want their stinking clicks.
Because it's a business. It is the grift.
Yeah.
The art of the grift. That's literally what it is. You could literally, why don't we have Donald Trump write a book called The Art of the Grift, just to teach every single one of these people exactly how they are the way that they are.
I can think of a few better sources than Trump for that, but
well, I mean, look, we got to go with certain names. And once again, Trump is great. I love Trump, all these things, but there is an art to being controversial and using that to draw. It's something that Trump actually knows a lot about. You can be a principled person that knows how to bring up controversial subjects. I mean, that's not a bad thing. And when we talk about,
to be able to say, I don't know.
Right.
A lot of people, they don't admit when they don't know. Like, dog, I don't know. And it's not like we're not holding ourselves out right now. You and I, when we're doing this, is like we're the almighty gurus on this. Like, look, we're guys that have a reasonable amount of experience in like writing, research, stuff of that stuff of that nature, and we're still being like, look, we're just giving our takes. This is what it is. I'm not holding myself out as like the anti-grift expert. I'm just telling you what's happening, and this is human nature. Every temptation that you think that some talking head has, you think that he might have, he actually has. And I myself have felt those temptations before. I'd be a lot more popular if I just went and said, like, Vatican II was an anti-council. Pope Francis is evil. It's really easy to be popular by just telling people what they want to hear, because ultimately people want to be affirmed, not challenged. So you can really respect people who will challenge their base. And like I said, Michael Lofton is a good example of that. He doesn't care. He doesn't give a crap how many clicks he gets. He wants to tell the truth, and you can tell because he challenges his base.
Well, that's the other thing, is that a lot of these people will have their views challenged, or they'll be challenged to defend those beliefs in some sort of manner, and then they'll just refuse or ignore it, and they'll just like, hike up their tie and be like, ha, I'm too distinguished to go and do that. I was like, no, you know what? No, you're not. You're actually a coward that's unwilling to go out and confront the ideas that you've presented to the church, the ideas that are putting souls in danger in the opposing side's camp. They actually believe this. So why aren't you defending these beliefs? Why is there not a giant Catholic debate circle among all of Catholic intelligentsia on YouTube? Where is it?
It's not there because no one wants to get freaking yoked in front of their sycophantic followers.
Because it's not about the truth. It's not about the truth. It's about the bottom line. That's it's all it is, because they know if they just like I said, if they just hike up their shorts and go into this topic that they weren't necessarily sure about, but just wanted to theoretically explore while putting a clickbait title that makes it sound like they're certain that it's true on it, what's going to wind up happening is you're going to be caught in a position where somebody calls you out and says, well, you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong. And then it's like, now come talk to me about why you're wrong in person if you think that you're right. And it's just like, well, I don't want to do that. I mean, if he proves me wrong in front of everybody, I could lose half my following, and that's my income, and then I'm going to lose my family's going to be starving, all this stupid stuff. And then it goes back to this. Well, why just say it then, dummy?
Yeah. Well, you will lose your air of omniscience to the tradwives that make up 82% of your audience and who, give you that Patreon Skrilla. And you don't want to lose that air of omniscience. Like, hey, none of the guys, I do the research that they do. In fact, I do the research better than they do. None of the guys that are holding themselves out as like quasi-omniscient and fit to give opinion on all of these things, none of them have the first freaking clue about what they're talking about, like 80% of the time. And I've talked to them. I know who I'm talking about. I've spoken to them personally. All the people that, are adored roundly. They make simple mistakes. It's like, dog, you hold yourself out as omniscience. You didn't know that the church doesn't endorse, like, the constitutive tradition as opposed to the material sufficiency of Scripture. Like, you made that error to me in, like, a text conversation. It's embarrassing. Yet you hold yourself out to tradwives as some kind of deity. I don't know, man.
That's sort of the problem, is that I think a lot of these popular internet figures, they really cater to their fan base so much so that they think that their fan base's little $10 donation or whatever is means that they control your content. No, the content is either the truth or it's not the truth, and you're gonna get it whether you like it or not. That's how these YouTube channels should be run. But like you said, when you have all these frumpy tradwives, coming up and commenting like, I'm unsubscribing because you said something mean, and then it's just like, I mean, why isn't the answer? Why is the answer, let's appease them? Why isn't the answer, okay, bye? Don't let the door hit you on the way out. I mean, this is a major problem that I've seen with Catholic YouTubers, is a lot of times, sometimes they might not even believe something, but they'll be quieter on that specific thing because they know it will hurt the bottom line. That's the other thing. They're like, I can give an example. I'm not going to name any names, but this is all throughout Catholic YouTube. This is all throughout Catholic YouTube, specifically the right-wing trad sections of YouTube. A lot of those podcasters do not agree with the canonical status, with the SSPX having canonical status in the church. A lot of them believe that they are in schism, but they purposely dampen their message and they don't talk about it because they're afraid they're going to lose them big tweed suit bucks that they're getting all the time.
I've seen it.
It happens all the time.
You can't make it up, Joe. You can't make it up. You get DMs on Twitter like, is this really the hill you want to die on? Because I'm going to take my $19.99 a month and go somewhere else. It's like, no, not that. No, anything but the $20 a month. I'll sell you my soul, and I'll be quiet about Lefebvre planting schism in the church and creating a huge problem where like 40% of people who go to Latin Mass don't think Vatican II is a real and legitimate and binding council. And I'm going to shut up about that and lose my soul for your $20? It's hilarious. How do these people think like that? Is this a hill you want to die on? Like, well, first of all, they act like it's like $1 million. Like, you really want to lose that $1 million donation because you spoke the truth? First of all, yes. Yes, I do. That's exactly the hill I'll die on. You're telling me all these... Dude, okay, here's a hot take. This needs to be said. All these dweebs out there, like, LARP out, and they're like, man, if I were around during the Diocletian persecution, I would totally get my head lopped off for Christ. It's like,
yeah, you won't even get your head lopped off for $20. Yeah, for $20 a month.
No, it doesn't work like that. If you can't take not being popular on YouTube and like having your audience dwindle a little bit, you weren't getting your head lopped off for Christ. You're not getting put in like a bronze bowl and like burnt alive for Christ. That would never happen. Oh, I'd stare down a lion in the Colosseum. If only I were alive back then. But I'm going to shut up so I can have my $20. I can get my $8. Like, that would never happen.
And the best part is whose money are they taking? But the SSPX church's money, where you have like you were saying, these these tweed suit dweebs that the only remnant of the faith in their mind is the SS. No, that's not everybody in the SSPX. I'm actually sure that there's plenty of people in the SSPX that are completely unaware of the fact that the sect that they're in is schismatic. But the ones that you interact with online that militantly defend it, despite being presented with evidence like, oh, I don't know, the fact that 3 popes, one of which is a saint, the next of which was a traditionalist, and then the third of which was a modernist, that's the only thing all 3 of them managed to agree on, was that the SSPX is in schism. That's the only thing. So that's sort of what I'm getting at with this whole thing, is like, you have these podcasters out here that are being manipulated by people like that. And that's not okay. It's not okay to let yourself be manipulated by people who, for one, are not cool and are not the future of the church, and 2, people who literally have no knowledge of theology, and you're just going to continue to lead them on.
Yeah. It's well said, man. Like, I couldn't tell if you were going to keep going, but you're
no. I mean, well, here's the thing. It's just like this kind of goes with, like, you know, the progression of media. I mean, this is just like what Martin Luther did in the Reformation, for example. You know, you start out with these weird, interesting ideas, like, you know, things that people that was long settled long ago, but is now something that is being brought up again as a question. So you bring up that thing that's been settled long ago, and you write, like, sola fide, for example. You know, you'll bring up sola fide, and you won't actually go and argue with the hierarchs about it. You'll go and hammer it to churches. You'll go into bars and pubs and talk about it, and then when you do finally go and take a debate, you lose the debate and then still refuse to concede that you lost the debate. Doesn't that sound familiar? Does that not sound like, you know, Catholic YouTube today?
Except for the fact that, like, there was debating happening.
Well, yeah.
YouTube. I'm going to say something super tendentious and, you know, inflammatory, incendiary, and then I'm going to go hide on my, like, lofty perch and have all the plebes that watch me do my defending for me. I won't even speak on my own behalf. I'm just going to let all of my people shout you down because I'm too special and they know that.
Well, that's what's funny about it. Yeah,
the debate would be honest. I'd take that. Like, at least if you're going to say something wrong, let me publicly freaking yoke you.
Well, that's kind of where people, people do that. And then, but the worst part, even with the debates, when you debate with the public, their sycophantic fans will just, you know, they're more concerned. They're less concerned with figuring out the truth after the debate, and more concerned with rooting for their guy. I mean, for example, I watched your debate with Jeff Kassman, and in my opinion, I thought that you had slightly won that. You did slightly better than he did at defending the points. And after that, I go and I look in the comments section, and it's literally a bunch of these sycophantic weirdos just in the comments. It's like, it doesn't even defend his arguments. It's just like, the comments are something stupid. I really like that Jeff Kassman. I really think that he's great.
He's got class, you can see, because he was smoking a cigar like an 80s coke dealer.
Like, that doesn't defend his arguments, dude. Did you listen to the contents of the debate? Or are you just sitting on the sideline like an effeminate cheerleader with your tratty little tweed pom-poms? I mean, come on.
Well, here's the other thing. All these people think that they're in the unique position of thinking that the person they were rooting for really won. You know, like, you see, like, just like in boxing.
That's why on Twitter it turns into, you know, who could win the war on ratios and less, you know, you don't even see the minds that you probably did convince. I always tell people this when they're on social media. If you see anywhere in the comments on anything, any, you know, column that you've written, any podcast that you did, any news report that you made, anything along those lines. If you see anything along those lines where there are people in the comments that are just like, if you have 3 out of 300 that say, you know, I read that was pretty darn good. I mean, you really kind of changed my mind on it. You don't understand that means that you've done an immeasurable amount of damage to your opponent. That means you've done an immeasurable amount of damage, because typically the people that are convinced don't want to comment because they don't want to cause conflict.
Yeah, generally people go into a debate with somebody they want to win. There's very few people out there that just have a completely open mind going into something and wanting to, like, I'm just here for the truth, may the best man win. Usually people have a dog in the fight, a horse in the race. That's Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, I've done internet debates in the past with a couple people. I debated a couple white nationalists one time, and even in the comments, it wasn't, the comments were, almost all in favor of my opponent who had a much greater following than me. But there was also a bunch of comments of being like, wow, this was actually a really good discussion. That's how you know what you were talking about reached your people. Reached their people. If their people are saying it was a good discussion, if their people were saying, I learned a lot from this and this person's very smart, that means that you've now gained sympathy. It's not sympathy from the other side. And that means that you actually crushed that person. It means you crushed them.
Well, just to move the conversation along a little bit, we need to caution everybody. You have to be responsible with who you support, and you have to know yourself too, with whether you're in something for education or entertainment. And here's something that I really learned, it really hit me in graduate school, was if you want the right answer to something, you kind of have to either have like a true guru who's going to be honest with you and tell you the truth. And, so you go to the expert who really is got intellectual honesty and is going to hew closely to the truth no matter what. He's guided by a love for the truth and not by a particular point of view he wants to advance. That's number one. But number two is do your own research. There is no talking head. They don't have special
Not
tricks.
Google research, by the way.
Right. Go to library. But there's no special trick that like your favorite podcaster is going to have to chase down information. They don't have like fonts of information that's like the secret library for scholars or something like that. What they do is they would either read a book or, God forbid, just like look at something for a couple minutes on the internet and then bloviate about it for 35 minutes, and then while stacking the bills hand over fist. That's what you can't have that. Do your own research. You have to be a little bit responsible in order to put out a quality show. Here's the other thing. Like you guys know, I did an episode on covering what does the church talk about? What does it teach about like marital conjugality? Which is a tricky topic, right? And in order to do that like hour-long show or whatever it was, it's 20 hours of research. The way you know that all these podcasters who are flapping their gums on all of this broad array of topics, and by the way, family and marital fidelity, conjugality, marital issues, that's something I really dedicated myself to. That's something I spent particular time researching the sacrament of marriage in grad school. It's something that was important to me. And I still had to do about 20 hours of research. The notion that these guys out there are just so brilliant on a broad array of topics that they can go from liturgical theology to ecclesiology to, dogmatic theology, and they just know they have all the answers. They have all of these answers for everything. It's laughable. They don't have all the answers. They don't know everything. They're giving you a very cursory treatment of something, and oftentimes they're not even telling you, oh, the church allows different opinions on this. The church allows different ideas on this, and the issue isn't settled because they themselves don't know. And people take their opinions on something and they run with it and they think it's gospel truth. And then they get challenged. They get sensitive if you challenge something. It's creating all kinds of problems in the Catholic world because laymen are stepping into these roles. And when you have laymen stepping into roles and they're doing it for a career, that causes them to want to say things that are going to tickle their audience ears, and then the truth suffers for it. We can't have it anymore.
No, and this is one of the examples of where the free market can actually be a predatory tool against truth. But this whole model began with media. I mean, this goes beyond the Catholic discourse because Catholic media competing Catholic media is a relatively new thing. I mean, for the past 20 years until these other media figures started popping up, it was largely EWTN that everyone would go to. All Catholics would go and watch EWTN for their Catholic information. But now today we're finally getting into that more like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, all these different companies battling it out. And And what you're seeing is we're finally starting to realize what the political community realized a long time ago. In the 1970s and 1980s, it was all about objectivity because America was largely uninformed. They didn't have any idea what was going on at the time, and they just wanted the facts so they could discern their own opinions. Fast forward to 2000, 2002 to 2004, you had this massive, 24-hour news juggernauts facing off, Fox News versus CNN, and you had them start to polarize. And then it started becoming more about catering to their audiences. It became more about catering to their audiences. You didn't watch Bill O'Reilly because he gave you just the straight facts. You watched Bill O'Reilly because he massaged your opinions that you already had.
Kidding, dog? The no spin zone?
We'll do it live.
And if you're a stupid neocon, then you like Sean Hannity.
Yeah, right. Well, that's my point. And then it became more about personalities. And here's the thing. We've gotten to a point in America where every single American has a base level of knowledge about ideology, and they have picked one that they subscribe to. So they're not interested in going and watching objective information being spat at people anymore. What they're actually interested in is having their opinions massaged and developed further by another person. And that's what we're finding now, just beginning in the Catholic world with all these giant YouTube stars that are coming out of left field. And that all began probably around 2016. I mean, that's when the YouTube revolution really took off.
I'm embarrassed to even call people like that stars. Like, dog, my video got 300,000 hits. Like, that's not a star. I'm embarrassed to be part of this little world where it's like...
No, but think about it.
It's not Fox News numbers.
Think about it, though. The leading male podcaster on YouTube is a pothead UFC announcer. I mean, think about it. It's not about anything except, well, this guy seems like he's kind of in the middle on things. He'll say something conservative once in a while, he'll say something liberal once in a while, and then you have all these radical centrists flocking over to him, and then you'll have people on the left and the right just praising him whenever he says something that marginally agrees with what they believe in. Because it all goes back to this. Why is Joe Rogan popular? It's because he appeals to everyone's already predetermined opinions.
Does that make Joe Rogan right?
No, that's the problem. That's what people need to realize.
We're in such a weird place, though.
Yeah.
Like Joe Rogan, who is legitimately a star, his fans, if you were just like, yeah, Joe Rogan's totally wrong about this, and I think he made a complete, ass of himself the other day on his show, his fans be like, yeah, that's fair. But if you are in, like, the right-wing or Catholic world, and you go and you talk about somebody's favorite podcaster, and you're like, I think they got this wrong. Then everyone's like, you're just mean. You're an evil son of a gun. He's my favorite. He's my hero. He's a living saint. He's just out there trying to do. It's deranged.
Well, with Catholics, it's even worse. With Catholics, it's even worse because you won't even get genuine vitriol. You'll get this like condescending,
I know where you're going with this.
Stupid response, this opinion you have is horrific. I'm gonna pray for the repose of your soul.
You have calumniated somebody. I think what you need to do is go and meditate on the 8th commandment for 35 minutes and pray 2 litanies to the patron saint of unfair defamation. You can't do that.
By the way, you need to also go to confession.
Right. They love that one.
That's the go-to. That's the go-to right away.
The pray for you is go-to.
Well, I mean, those are the two. I'm going to pray for you. You need to go to confession. It's like, that's what you're telling me. He's like, have you ever considered that maybe I developed my opinion and disagreed with him for reasonable reasons? Right. And I'm calling for a legitimate discourse among Catholics so we can move closer to the truth.
Well, but you get passive-aggressive prayers. You're getting passive-aggressive prayers. Like, you know what? I'm going to pray for you because you're clearly a very bitter alcoholic who abuses his wife and is on the path to hell. So I'm going to pray for you that you're less of a pompous jerk. You get passive-aggressive prayers,
Oh,
like where the point isn't the actual prayer. I doubt most of these people who say it even go and, like, pray for me. It's just like, I'm going to pray that you're less of a jerk. It's like a prayer insult. It's a prinsult.
Well, that's what it is. Like, I'd rather be called a racist fascist that needs to get his head chopped off by a leftist than listen to another one of those stupid condescending comments. I'm not even joking. I much prefer that, because you know what? I actually believe the leftist wants me dead. You know, I don't actually believe the Catholic's praying for me.
Yeah, that's no hot take. No, definitely, and it makes me resent it. It's like, you will not pray for me. If you pray for me, I will come over there and kill you right now.
The last thing I want is for you to pray for me.
You will go to confession. Like, I will never go to confession again, just to spite you. I will deliver myself to damnation so I can make you sad. You.
But seriously, this is like a major issue, because for Catholics, it's not just about being right. It's about it's literally turning into the left, where it's like this. We have to look good. We have to let everybody know that we're on team this, that, or the other. You know, and then this is the one that really gets me. This is the one that really gets me. Where some idiot makes like a YouTube video stating a fact about something that's clearly not taught by the church, or that isn't defined clearly by the church and still needs to be discussed, but they'll state it as a matter of fact. And then you like call them out on it after their video got like over 1 million views or whatever, 300,000 views, whatever it might be. And then you get the response, did you send him a message privately before you... Did you send him a message privately before you disagreed with his opinion on Twitter?
It honestly hurts my heart that people are this dumb. I am going to speak out in front of my audience of 20 million people and say that somebody is the Antichrist. But then, if somebody disagrees, takes umbrage with my words, like, you know what? I think you were wrong, and I think you are in sin. Yeah, then you get the Karens, the ecclesiastical Karens that are going to come to you and be like, you know what? I think you're in mortal sin because you didn't approach him privately first. It's like, you publicly said this. Somebody publicly said something. I'm not going. Why would I go private?
Well, here's the question. Here's the question.
If they were courtesy to the person they're defaming publicly.
Here's the question. It's like, if the ecclesiastical Karen is is publicly rebuking you for not rebuking somebody publicly about something. Well, isn't that them rebuking you publicly without asking you privately first? It's literally a logical contradiction, which means the opposite is true.
Your train of thought right now was about 7 layers deeper than the canonical Karen who would be like criticizing in the first place. That's the thing. Yes, that's very logical. It's a cogent point. It holds together analytically. That's precisely why the dingbat correcting you on YouTube didn't get it. Like, it was about 7 layers over their head.
It's also precisely why they're sycophantic, because they can't actually develop their own logical trains of thought on their own. They can't actually develop their minds on their own, so they latch on to another intellectual and just parrot everything that they say.
Right.
And that's also the other big problem is you'll have these people like fancying themselves theological buffs going and having conversations with their friends on Facebook, when I'm literally just hearing every single talking point from some stupid YouTuber's last video.
Right.
There's no original thought anymore. It's like you need to analyze these ideas, properly. I can give an example of this. I was talking to a priest while I was down in Florida the other weekend, and one of the things we were talking about is how you could be in heaven and be reunited with your glorified body on the new earth. And one of the things that I suggested, just through my own train of thought, through my own logical processes, was that well, here's an interesting idea. What if we do know, like through some of the miracles of Padre Pio, that bilocation is a sign of holiness. It can be a sign of holiness at the very least. So if that's a sign of holiness, perhaps in our glorified bodies we'll be able to stay in the eternal moment of heaven while simultaneously being reunited with our glorified bodies on earth. It's possible. I don't know if it's right. I'm not saying it's right. But the point is there was thought involved. There was an original thought. There was ideas putting together. There was thinking about the church, putting it together, and then presenting it. There isn't any of that sort of critical thinking anymore. And instead, it's just parroting what other people say.
And trusting that they've done their homework.
Right.
Like, if I could I wouldn't do it. Because, again, going back to the whole thing, I have integrity. And it matters to me about what I say. And it matters to me that I'm going to have to stand before the Lord and be like, look, this is why I said this. every jot and tittle and idle word that I say, I know I'm going to be judged for, and that scares me. It scares me, keeps me up at night. But if I were a guy that could make $1 million just saying like hot takes that are poorly researched, 30 minutes of reading an article before doing some long, stupid, bloviating live stream, if I could do that, would be very tempting to most people. It's a good way to make a buck. Look, I read this thing, and I'm going to give my opinion on it for 15 minutes, and it's going to be a facile opinion. It's going to appeal to people at surface level, and then. And most people I know aren't going to do their homework and like fact check me. Most people aren't going to go and actually do the research. Most people are here on YouTube. It's like 9 o'clock on Friday night. They're having a bottle of wine. They want to listen to something and be titillated for a little bit. Think about it.
Yeah.
People, like, use your brain. As I said earlier, every temptation you think that would be involved with being a public personality is involved with being a public personality. They don't have some special grace that's keeping them, afloat. Just like, how many members of the magisterium do we see at this point that are essentially fallen worldlings? And it's sad. It's a lamentable thing. They have the grace of state, and they're still falling into the worldly errors. There's still too many worldly priests and bishops. Can you imagine? Like, just some random guy stacking cash with monetized this, that, everything. Can you imagine the temptations that he has to deal with when he's putting out every temptation you can think of? There is. And you just assume somebody's credible, but yes, it's my cuckoo clock. Joe's going to make an obnoxious comment in a second.
You just read it. I wanted to call you out on it, but you already made the joke.
It was like an Eminem, 8 Mile thing. I know you're going to just take a dump on me for it, so I figured I would just be like,
yeah, thank you.
I own a cuckoo clock. Have at it. Now
I mean, I don't even know what to say after that, to be honest with you. It's like, all right, well, at least you acknowledge that you are weird.
Okay, first of all, it's a Black Forest cuckoo clock made in Germany. Second of all, you're just jelly. You don't have one. That's
definitely what it is.
Okay. Well, anyway, that is. I mean, that's the point. People, you have to use your sense. You have to think and be like, what are the temptations? Why is this guy saying what he's saying? Why is he doing what he's doing? You have to be able to answer and be like, did he do his homework?
More than that. You have to do more than that. I mean, consulting your reason is obviously the first rational step and the first step to figuring out whether something else is true or not. But you also need to consult. You also need to consult these questions through prayer. I mean, that's the other thing that you need to follow up a lot of this with. You consult your reason first, and then you consult your prayer. And from there, you're able to go to a reasonable authority with what you figured out and be able to present it. That is.
I guess I'm nervous to tell people to go to prayer.
No. I'm not saying just go to prayer. My point is that once you consult reason, once you consult prayer, then you can consult the church. And I'm not saying every Tom, Dick, and Harry. I'm saying you can go to your priest with what you think and what you've said, and have him go to the next level of authority and do other things. There's a reason that there's a hierarchy that exists in the church. I mean, even the Fatima children weren't believed at first.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a vision of the Blessed Virgin Mary appearing to me, saying to do this, and I've shown you like 3 or 4 miracles, and then like you didn't get the sycophants being like, Sister Lucia, you are defaming a living saint. That wasn't happening at the time. Everyone's a little bit dubious, a little bit, I don't know if I believe them, and that's normal.
You're supposed to have a healthy skepticism.
Go to Catholic podcasts in the 21st century, and it's like, well, this person said that, most of the magisterium is an antichrist. And it's like, well, I don't think that's accurate. And they're like, well, that's because you're the devil too.
Like I said, it's never that nice. It's never that honest. Sorry, it's never that honest. It's always something condescending and stupid that just makes you're not even angry about it. You just roll your eyes and like pinch the bridge of your nose, and you're just like, all right, like. I'm starting to wonder if that's like a bot. You know what I mean? Like if it's just some made up characters, like hundreds of them that are deployed by some YouTuber that doesn't like his content being ripped on so much. It's like release the prayer droids. You know
yeah, exactly. But how do you get people? How do you program that scoldy, effeminate tone into like a bot to do that? It's too accurate. It defies all credibility because it's too
God
accurate.
Makes every human being so with the capability to be so individual and stand out among everybody else, but they also have this immeasurable capacity to be exactly the same as everyone else. And it's really annoying, especially when they get into these little cliques. And that's personally what bothers me the most. It's one of the reasons that Catholics really have no like worthwhile cultural representatives in the modern day. I mean, you can go back and look at Rocky Marciano, for example. I mean, he was the undefeated heavyweight champ. What is he, like 50-0, I believe? And he 49-0. He almost got there. And he was a daily mass goer. I mean, he read the lives of the saints in the Bible. He credited his undefeated record to his mom's, prayerful devotion to the rosary. I mean, those are all things that you didn't even know about him because all you did was think that Rocky Marciano was cool because he could knock people's lights out. But he was Catholic, and he was a good Catholic, and he was a cultural representative for Catholics all across the United States. People could look to him and be like, that's a Catholic champion, and I resonate with him. Today, who do we have? Who are we going to resonate with? I mean, like I said, we have this church of like dweebs that are either walking up to you in bongo drums and a tie-dye shirt to tell you, like I said before, about, some stupid David Haas song. Or you have these, trads that are, constipated and say that if you go and want to watch a UFC fight with the boys and have a beer, that you're some sort of psychopath because you could be spending that time reading Aquinas.
Yeah. Well said. I think, I'm ready to put a stick of pork in it here because
I've said everything I need to say.
Be wary. Be cautious. Keep your critical thinking skills on. Keep your reasoning hats on. Don't just go along and drink somebody else's Kool-Aid, and don't define yourself because you're a member of somebody else's cult. We've gotten to a point where because of all the stupid content people are consuming, because they're treating Catholicism like some kind of a club as opposed to a religion, where it's just all kinds of problems with it.
It's needs not to high school. It's preparation for eternal life.
That's honestly, if I might say, if I were to do the psychoanalysis here, it feels like people who weren't appreciated in high school are forming this geeky little club, and they're getting all of their pent-up angst out on the world by being like, this guy doesn't even know his Aquinas. So, and they're developing this weird pecking order with these pundit hierarchs at the top, and then everyone's kind of goose-stepping along blindly to somebody else's little song, somebody else's little melody. And it's got to stop. It's unhealthy for the church. And
it's all driven by money. It's all driven by money. You got to remember that when you're. Well, that's what I'm saying. Right. Well, obviously they're doing these things to be entertaining and to fit in. But really, what you need to think about is whenever you're watching a podcaster, whenever you're watching something, something that's made public, something that's for a large group of viewers to watch, ask yourselves: is he only giving his audience exactly what they want to hear? Or is he giving them the truth and facing that backlash, whether it hurts or helps him?
Right. And that's what, remember, we've had like 6 members. Oh, and this is our final word. No, but this is something else to keep in mind. Just preaching the gospel, it's challenging to everybody. And this is why Christ wasn't accepted. This is why Christ was rejected by the world. When you're saying things that are true, you're not going to be popular. It's almost paradoxical that if you see someone who's really, really popular, I guarantee they're not saying the unbridled truth. They're strategizing. And whenever you start strategizing about what it is you're going to say and win, instead of just coming out with the truth, you're playing chess with the devil, and you're probably falling into serious sins. So remember that. If you're speaking the truth, you're not going to be popular.
And go to confession.
All right. Peace.